My guest today is professional diver, ocean and cave explorer, shark ecologist and behaviorist, photographer, speaker, writer, conservationist, sometimes called the shark whisperer. Cristina Zenato. What's up, Cristina?
Hi, Doug. All
It-
good.
Oh, is it okay to like I've heard other people call you that and I didn't know if that was like a nickname that you're cool with or not, but I had to add it in.
Shark Whisperer is actually the least favorite nickname I have. And the reason why is no, but it's okay. It opens a conversation up. The concept to me of Shark Whisperer, and it's a beautiful title, I do understand it. But to me it's like it makes me feel as if I'm doing something magical. Like I'm
Yeah.
going to the sharks and I whisper to do something different. Be
Yeah.
I call myself the shark listener. A lot of people call me mother of sharks. And to me is I don't really whisper to sharks. What I do is I interpret them and their behavior and their uh, language in a way. And then I try to interpret it for other people and say, well, no, let's think about things like a shark rather than interpret a shark behavior through a human connotation. So
Yeah.
it's really why sometimes shark whisperer kind of like maybe takes away from the possibility that everyone has to connect with sharks given enough time and enough patience.
It's almost like, it's made it, like, mystical sounding, like
Yeah,
like a
well, to
shark
me, it's
whisperer, like,
like,
you go down there and you telepathically like because when the sharks, like, come to you, it's like you're not telepathically calling them, you've just spent years learning shark behavior and how to interact with them, and then also, um actually, before we get into all that, can we start with a story? Because I would love to, talk about like just well, actually, maybe two things. Like one, a quick understanding of why so many sharks are swimming around with hooks in their
mhm,
mouths. Uh, I think maybe a lot of people don't realize that that's going on.
mhm.
And before we get all the way into how you became, known by your least favorite nickname, um, the story of the very first time you ever pulled a hook out of a shark's mouth.
All right, let's start with the second one. I don't remember.
Oh, you don't remember the first time
I
you pulled
do
a?
not remember
Oh,
because to me it was a natural reaction to seeing someone that I loved
yeah,
suffering. So if somebody said, do you remember, you just mentioned you have a kid. I said, do you remember the first time you picked up your kid because while he was trying to walk, he fell?
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, maybe you remember the first time a kid walks, but do you remember the first time you remove a thorn out of your dog's paw? And so
yeah,
it's the same concept for me. For me, I don't remember. I just know that as I was becoming more comfortable with the sharks and I was working with them, I realized that these hooks were making the sharks uncomfortable.
yeah.
And as such, my instinct was, I'm going to help you because I love you. Sharks have hooks in their mouth for many different reasons. The first one is they are primarily sharks. So
Yeah.
they're called by nature to respond to the struggling, injured, damaged fish that traditionally fishers obviously hook. Some hooks might be scheduled for sharks, so some hooks might not be scheduled for sharks, but sharks will react to a hooked fish
Yeah.
and go and try to snatch it. And in trying to snatch it, they might end up with a hook. Or if somebody's trying to fish them, obviously they'll respond to what is the stimuli attached to the hook, and then the shark will bite it. So sharks end up with hooks in their mouth because of primarily human action,
And that also
direct and indirect.
explains why oftentimes the hook is found so deep in the shark's mouth.
Correct.
Because I've seen video of you with your arm fully in a shark's mouth, trying to get a hook that's really deep in there. Well,
Yes.
so obviously, yeah, that was kind of a silly question. Like, what I mean to be like, what's the absolute first time? But maybe just kind of like more of like a vague kind of like, do you recall like what it was like which like what was kinda going on in your life at that time when you were shark diving? Were you wearing chainmail? Were you wearing just a regular suit?
Yes, yes. I already was wearing chainmail. We were doing interactive shark dives, and that's where the sharks will come in and approach. And I realized that I have the protection, the tool, and the skills to remove the hooks. What really went through my mind is I can see how much you're suffering and I'm going to help you. Or was I maybe hesitant? It's like, of course I was hesitant. One of the most common questions that in retrospect made me go, interesting you asked that. I never asked myself that question is people going, weren't you afraid the shark will react in a defensive manner? Because it's true. If you have, let's say, a fox in a trap and you go to try to open the trap, the fox will try to bite you
Yeah.
as a defensive mechanism, not because they're afraid, they're extremely afraid. And it's one of those things, it never crossed my mind, and maybe it's because I was already used to the sharks and their behaviors. The sharks don't do that. When you go to remove the hook, they either swim away, telling you, no, it hurts, I'm not interested, or they keep coming back. They do little loops and they keep coming back. And it means, I know what you're trying to do. Nature tells me it hurts. So I'm going to swim away for 2 seconds and then come back and allow you to do it again. But it was very much after people start asking me, aren't you afraid of them defending themselves? I'm like, they don't do that.
Yeah.
So that is what makes them, I think, very special. There's just so much misinformation about them that when they do these things, it to me even brings them more to even like a calmer and more unique level than many animals out there. We're having a conversation at dinner. There's a lot of people, they talk about so much about sharks. A shark is the number one word that will make people heart racing. People don't even go in a shower. Just received the message of a lady saying, well, I went to the beach and I wouldn't even pick up the ocean water with a cup to
Yeah.
get wet.
Yeah.
But if you think about it on land,
Yeah.
most of the would say quote unquote dangerous animals during human and animal encounters are actually herbivores.
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
absolutely. Yeah, like
We
a
went through the moose, we went through the elephant, the rhino, the hippo, and it's really funny. Everybody's so afraid of sharks, which is again a word that includes 530 species of them, from the size of a pen to the size of the bus to eating lobster to eating plankton and a few biting animals our size. But on land is actually the herbivores. So it's not just being a carnivorous animal. And that is where I think it's almost like this overflowing pot of misinformation about that.
I would say I noticed this. I think this was just a few months ago. It was earlier this summer. Um, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, so I'm completely landlocked.
Yeah.
There is no beach. There's no real reason I should be receiving. And this is on the local news, which I don't really watch. But I was at the gym. It was on TV, and I looked up and it said shark attack, and I was like, what? In Nashville? Of course not. But it was a surfer, and and it's very rare, but it happens. Sometimes a surfer gets bit, and I was like, why is this on the local news in Nashville, Tennessee? Uh, and I mean, obviously, because it's sensational, and the media is like, hey, a shark attack. We don't. It's a slow day. We don't have anything else going on. Let's throw this shark attack that happened 1,000 miles away on the local news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is an inherent reason. I try always to be very balanced. Obviously, I love sharks. I think the news and the word attack and a lot of the language should be altered to a more reasonable explanation. But I also do understand this. It's like this fear, obsession, fascination with phobia, and it's all mixed in. And I get it. It comes from our ancestry, right?
Yeah,
We are here because our ancestors were smart enough to go, don't get out of the village. They're the
yeah,
saber tiger that is going to eat you. Nobody, and I do get it, nobody wants to get eaten alive.
yeah,
But the relationship, the balance, the numbers between the amount of people that go in the water and the occasional shark bite is so low. And like you said, it was in Nashville, Tennessee. But here's the thing, I wonder how many cases of domestic violence happened that specific day in which you said, well, the news were slow,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And yet, how much domestic violence happened on that day that the news went, well, it's slow.
yeah,
And is you actually have to be more afraid of your loved ones, of your own kind,
yeah,
humans, right? In your own home, and yet we put so much emphasis on this animal that is at the end of the day very mistrusting. uh, Thousands and thousands of videos now with the drones of sharks swimming by people, not even the people not even realize the sharks are there, and the sharks going, yeah, no, definitely not interested. And yet so much attention to it.
I would go as far as to say this, and I'm not trying to be silly, but even in the water, in the shark's environment, when I'm in their home, I'm more likely to be attacked by a human than by a shark, and I can back that up just from surfing. And I'm not trying to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so many cool people surf. I mean, so many cool people surf, and that's it's so totally true. But a lot of not cool people also, a lot of very aggressive, uh, you know
Territorial.
territorial is the word. And I don't want to get all into that whole thing, but
No,
I
no.
I have feelings about that. Some guys where I'm like, hey man, this is like, I understand this is, you live here and you're a local, but that's not your ocean. Uh, but what I'm saying, ultimately,
I
is
heard stories about that. I'm
I'm
not a
yeah.
surfer at all, but I heard stories of the territoriality related to certain beaches or even certain waves.
Oh, there's some
And
real
yes,
there's
you're
some real
right.
jerks out there. Yeah, there's some total jerks that are like, I own this wave because I live 3 miles inland from here, and that's just, I don't know.
No, but
There's
you're
probably
right.
there's
There's
probably
a
some
higher
surfer listening
risk.
right now that's like, shut up, man.
And then all the cute statistics that people throw out there that our mind cannot comprehend. That's the reason why when people go throw these numbers out there, we need to understand the human reaction still will not understand that. So that's the reason why it's not something I use. But people go, oh, there's more people bitten in New York by humans than people bitten in the ocean in the world by sharks. It's something that our brain goes, yeah, okay, but the
Yeah.
shark bite, it still has that thing. So there's more people killed by vending machine. The number one killer animal in the world was the mosquitoes. I think we beat the mosquitoes as humans, but
Yeah,
what
but
I'm
yeah, by
saying
now
is, and
certainly.
all of these sometimes don't work. So what I'm trying to do is actually, instead of like throwing the vending machine and the coconut and my husband and I joke, right? But we are cave explorers, cave divers, rebreathers, shark people. The most dangerous part of our lives is driving on this island,
Yeah. Yeah.
the way the Bahamians drive. But I still try not to do that. What I try to do is bring the sharks down to a level of animal. Unfortunately, the sharks are actually not even an animal in lots of people's mind. They're these mindless beasts. They're monsters. They're like, somebody sent to me, they're like jaws attached to nerve ending that wants to bite. I mean, so let's first of all bring them down to a level of breathing, thinking, feeling, being animal,
Yeah.
and then even expose people to the understanding that they do have personalities, that they do have a range of capabilities of understanding and all that. But the first step is really taking them down from monsters. So we have a lot of work, never mind the vending machines.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is we need to demystify sharks and bring them down to the level of polar bears. Polar bear is intrinsically an extremely dangerous animal,
Yeah.
but people will not think twice of saying save the polar bears.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. We need to bring sharks to the same level. You can say some species of sharks could be potentially dangerous because of their size and because of their bite, and I get it, which is extremely rare. However, we need sharks, we need to protect them, we need to understand them, we need to protect their world and their environment, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah. Um, I mean, while we're on the subject of just kind of dispelling myths, and also talking about sharks having personalities, and I'm not trying to be like, not in a Disney sense, but more like, but you like, I'm sure you're able to, when you dive, you can distinguish one shark from another, perhaps not even based on just markings, but even maybe on how they act. But
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, also, I keep going back to videos I've seen of you, but another one I've seen, is that you will swim down to the ocean floor, and a lot of the sharks that know you will come and maybe rest their head on your lap, hang out with you, and I'm I don't know when the last time you've heard this is, because I'm sure you hang out with a lot more academics and people that know about sharks. But my
Oh no.
entire life, I've been hearing people say, I've heard this 1 million times. If I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times, that if a shark stops swimming, they die instantly. Have you heard that myth? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. I've
I
been
think I heard that in
accused of
first
kill.
grade, and I
I've I've been accused of suffocating my sharks to death for the
okay,
sake of the picture of a shark in my lap.
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Here I am, I'm
It's
admitting it every time. I suffocate one and then I do the next one for the next photo op.
yeah, and well, in order to save sharks, you have to kill a few sharks by
Yeah. It's
suffocating
just
them.
for the sake of the picture. All right, like the myth. Let's be serious here.
I love the internet. I'm sorry. I just the fact that there are people that have bothered to follow you and your work and what you do with these animals, and then accuse you of killing sharks is just I don't know. The internet, I think the internet's making people go crazy.
I don't know. What is the thing that I read that we thought that lack of education was due to lack of access?
Yep.
Yeah, not anymore.
No, no, no. Now you
So,
could look anything up in the world and people just choose to like still believe like I said, I was probably in first grade when I heard that if a shark stops
yeah.
swimming, it dies instantly. And but yeah, sorry.
Well,
Going back to
there's people that post like there's people that steal my videos and then repost them in these like mixed up stories, and the comments you read underneath, and it's just kind of like, why didn't you bother googling my name? Like people go, oh, this is total BS. This is fake. This is Photoshop. I'm like,
yeah.
hi, I'm real. Anyway, sharks.
Yes.
The myth comes in, and I think the biggest problem with sharks, I'm gonna back out here a little bit, is because every time we say sharks, people picture maybe one, two, two, three species of sharks. The one that have been talked about the most, the one that have been exposed to the most, which is usually great white, mako, blue, black, bull shark. Like the tigers.
Yeah.
So what happens is when I say sharks, people have a very, very, very pigeonhole vision of them, right?
Yeah.
I said the smallest shark in the world is the size of a pen.
Wow,
Listeners,
I
you
didn't
can
know
Google
that.
it. It's called the dwarf lantern shark. The maximum adult size is the size of a pen. The biggest shark in the world, which is also the biggest fish in the world, not the biggest animal, marine animal, those are whales. But the biggest fish in the world is the whale sharks, and it feeds on plankton. So the problem comes with the shark and the breathing, which is called ventilation, because everybody goes, sharks, pigeonhole, one lump.
Yeah.
The most known species, like the great white, have what is called a mandatory ram ventilation, obligate ram ventilator. I do apologize. It's an obligate ram ventilators. That means they have to constantly swim in order to ventilate. How do they
Okay.
do that? They keep their jaw slightly slacked. Water flows through their mouth into their gills where they extract oxygen. Some sharks use the treadmill of ventilation, which is they find ocean currents, face themselves into the ocean current, are capable of putting to sleep partial parts of their brain. They keep the eyes open, they can still see the environment, and kind of like use the flow of the current to ventilate for them.
Yeah.
However, the majority of sharks also owns a second ventilation system called buccal pumping. Buccal, for those who want to Google. Buccal pumping is the method by which most species of sharks have the secondary capability of sitting on the ocean floor, and by moving and opening and closing their jaws, they can siphon water in and then squeeze it through their gills where the oxygen is extracted.
Okay.
Similar what fish have buccal pumping.
Yeah.
So they can actually sit motionless. And it's really funny that there's this myth going on because there's one species of sharks that everybody knows, the nurse shark. And everybody sees the nurse shark sitting on the ocean floor, but anybody goes, oh, why is the nurse shark not dying?
Yeah.
But yet when they see a shark-shaped shark, like the Caribbean reef sharks, the one I work with, they go, oh, they're going to suffocate. It's like, no, it's just, they have the outer ventilation system. So
So
for the sake of knowledge,
yeah.
great whites, makos, blues, great hammerhead, scallop hammerhead, all the hammerhead species only have obligate ram ventilation. Most of the other species, including tigers, Caribbean reef sharks, bull sharks, white tip, black tips, some of those all have also an additional system called buccal pumping.
So I would say like you could put it like many kind of urban myths or whatever. There's always it always comes from a place of maybe a semi-truth or a partial truth, or in this case, like there is an instance where there is like a great white shark needs to swim,
Correct.
but uh, yeah, a reef shark in the Bahamas can easily use buco pumping and hang out with you on the floor, and
Dr. Eugenie Clark, who started talking about shark conservation back in the 50s, a personal hero and a friend while she was alive of mine. She's no longer with us. She used to nickname the Caribbean reef sharks the sleeper sharks. There's actually a National Geographic magazine from the 70s in which she found this Caribbean reef shark just snoozing on the ocean floor. The lemon sharks are always snoozing on the ocean floor.
cool.
So very much a big myth.
Yeah. All right, guys, Google that, but don't Google the fake myth. um, can we? I just want to go back just one second because we briefly brought up the chainmail diving suit,
Mm-hmm.
which you obviously wear for safety because even the sharks, that well. I mean, there's always an opportunity for accident. Um, and I was just kind of curious, like with that suit, like one, where did that design come from? And two, is it is it difficult to swim in? Because it seems like it would be very heavy and cumbersome. Like,
So the
oh,
suit is made of pure stainless steel. I think one of the best stainless steels I've seen in my life. My suit is over 20 years old, doesn't have a speckle of rust on it.
that's
It's
amazing.
made by a company called Neptunic, um, and it's based in West Palm. And obviously, I am a collaborator with them in the design now and obviously the use of it. It works the same way, when people go, oh, well, you remove hooks with a suit, that's easy, or you should try. I'm like, this is not a competition, first of all.
Well, it's not a
But it's,
stunt. You're not doing you're not a magician. Like, watch me
no,
stick
it's
my
not a
hand in
stunt, and I
this.
also do not belong to Jackass.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one of those guys
sorry.
got severely injured in Shark Week
Mm-hmm.
the year before last.
I did a
I think
very
he's
much a Jackass action. I can talk all about that because I did it here with these sharks. Anyway,
oh yeah.
so the suit
Good
is
then.
was first designed by Ron and Valerie Taylor, Australian filmmaking couple, famous for having filmed Blue Water, White Death, for being involved with Jaws. I mean, another personal hero, amazing lady friend of mine. She's in her 80s. Unfortunately, Ron left us already several years ago due to cancer. And they were filmmakers. And obviously, we're talking about the 60s, the 50s, the 60s, were filming sharks, and they thought sharks would just go around, bite everything. So they designed a suit, chainmail suit, to
Mhm.
be worn so that they could have their hands on their camera, their arms extended, floating in mid water, filming sharks feeding, or, like, let's say, a sardine run or anything like that, without having to worry about their
Yeah.
legs or their fins or their arms. It
Or
would
being
then
trapped inside
transfer
of the cage.
without out of the cage, just swimming around. And it basically is a protective suit that, it's like, I usually compare it to a seat belt of a car, or the mitten that the chef uses in the kitchen. You can be an amazing chef, but you're still gonna grab
Yeah.
the pan out
Yeah.
of the oven with the mitten. You can be an amazing driver, but you buckle your seatbelt in case you have an accident. It does not mean that having a suit on, like every minute the sharks bite you. If you look at my videos, you'll see me stand in the middle of them for hours on end, and there's never a bite. But because we remove hooks, because we work so close to their teeth, and because, to me, protecting myself means protecting the sharks,
Yeah.
I wear the suit. It's about 20 pounds, 20 to 20 pounds. They come in different sizes. I have a couple of suits that are, extra large, and I have a suit for me that is a medium size. So the extra large requires a little extra links.
Yeah.
This is about 25 to 28 pounds. Mine is about 20. It's
That's
actually
not so
not
bad.
bad to swim with.
20,
No,
20 pounds is
you
okay.
you couldn't swim for a very long time, like for a long, long time. You couldn't do a whole dive. I mean, I do sometimes swimming because I'm used to it,
Yeah.
but the average person might be a little bit discomfort. But it's nothing more than a waybill with a dry suit or a thick suit. The
Yeah.
only difference, the major danger of the chain suit is, which I tell my students when they do my shark course, is you cannot ditch it as fast as a weight belt.
Yeah.
So you're strapped into the 20 pounds. That means the demeanor by which you conduct your dive, the conservancy of your air consumption while you can conduct your dive, the comfortability you need to have with your regulator and mask needs to be a little bit higher, because I cannot do a quick woof, chainmail off, quick release, you're floating.
Yeah.
Everything that we do needs to be dealt with the excessive weight for some of us. And as such, there's no quick release. In scuba diving, one of the number one rules of the belt is it needs to, the weights that you're wearing, it needs to be quickly releasable. You need to be able to ditch
Yeah.
them. Excuse me. What it does, obviously, prevents you from sinking back to the ocean floor.
Yeah.
With the suit, you don't have that possibility. What does it mean is my approach to the dive is more conservative. We
Yeah.
end the dive with more air in the tank than I would on a regular swim dive. We are right underneath the boat rather than going on a tour, so that I can directly ascend to the line. We use a container that can be flipped and used as an elevation system should your inflation elevation system, primary elevation system, fail. So I have all these procedures in place on, like, what happens if you go in the Namibian desert and you have a flat tire? Well, you better have a spare tire.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Common sense. This my mind always goes to this too, though, as an added benefit. Um, you also could get some gains, like some muscle gains while so
I
you're
never
already
thought about that.
you're conducting science, you're working towards conservancy, you're helping save the sharks, but you're also getting a little more swole every time you dive because your suit's heavy. So I don't. My mind always goes to like, what's a little hack? What's a little way I can just kind of like sneak a workout in? Because when you're busy, you just want to be like, not every day do you have time for the gym and the weights.
Yeah.
So
I would
nice.
say it's more outside of the water when you climb up the ladder, when you
Yeah,
walk around the boat. I never thought about that.
you're probably much stronger than the average diver because you're always carrying like basically weights, like
I am
chainmail
a
weights.
strong person. I've had I'm 52, and we host a scholar, so we host the young people for free through our World of Scholarship Society, the Explorers Club, the Women Diver Hall of Fame. They end up sleeping on our couch, and they're usually in their 20s.
Yeah,
People that are into oceanography studies, and they come and spend 2 to 3 weeks with us. I teach them sharks, caves. They basically live with us. 5 o'clock in the morning, I flip the light in the living room on. It's like morning. So they really get to see what does it mean to be, yes, an ecologist and a conservationist, and making a living out of this, and how to summarize. And a lot of them in their 20s, as we start carrying cylinders to the caves under the Bahamian sun, they go, wow, you're so strong, how you do that. And part of it is I've done it for 30 years.
yeah,
So I slap one tank on the back, I sling over one of the shoulders. Next thing you know, I'm hiking 750 feet through crumbly, sinking, muddy terrain and get to the
yeah.
cave and do it again 3 times. I do keep in shape though. I go running, I do yoga, I do basic aerobic, anaerobic, and stretching as well. So
I just had this vision. So when you said you come in, you flip on the lights at 5 in the morning, and like just flip on the lights and be like, "Who wants to arm wrestle?"
no, I'm very gentle, but I tell them, I said, you can come and stay with us, or you can go and spend money on an Airbnb. However,
Yeah,
understand I cannot tiptoe around you. At 5 o'clock, I am up because I start answering emails. Check maybe our conversation. I answer on an early morning. I can't remember.
yeah,
I start answering email. I start preparing the social media. By 7 a.m., we have to walk the paths, go for our run. And by 8 a.m., 8:20, we're usually out of the door and picking up the guest and going for whatever we're doing.
yeah,
And so part of living the dream,
yeah. I mean, honestly, sounds like paradise to me. I don't.
I
I'll
love
get
what I do.
I'll get up
I've
at
done
five
it for
o'clock in the
30
morning every
years.
single day if that meant like by 8 a.m. I'm in the ocean. I mean, that sounds like a
It's a tough
sounds like a
work. I mean,
pretty
it's a
good
tough life.
deal.
A lot of people have done this, have tried this, and they run away screaming after
Oh yeah,
months, maybe after years. But I think is what I tell people, life is 50-50.
Yeah.
You can pick a 50%, or you can pick the other 50%, right? Let's say I can be a traveling adventurer person, and maybe you can do that with kids, but it becomes harder and harder. So usually, let's say you do the traveling adventure, and then you say, well, I'm going to have the family and settle a little bit more, with a year and a half old, you cannot always be through airports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just make sure that the 50% you pick satisfies you as if it's 80%, right? So if I wake up and during these choices in my life, I go, wow, this is really worth it 80% of the time, 70% of the time, then it's still worth it.
Yeah.
If you wake up and you're thinking, wow, this is no longer worth it, then maybe it's time for a change. But you cannot have it all. At the end of the day, you don't go to a all you can eat buffet and eat it all and go, oh, well, that felt really good.
Yeah.
So you cannot have it all. You can say what you want. People can contest what I'm saying is, but you cannot have it all. I think that you need to decide what is it that you want, what makes your heart content, and ultimately, what is the price you want to pay.
Yeah.
And I usually make this example, and people think it's crazy, but you might want to be a successful lawyer in New York City who has access to wearing, and I'm a woman, so I'm going to put it, and I put to the extreme. You want to be able to buy your brand shoes and your brand purse and change outfit 3 times per day and have a nightlife. And if that what makes you happy, go for it.
Yeah.
There is a price to pay. There is a steep price to pay for everyone, for every choice that we make in life.
Yeah.
Once your price tag is worth for you, then you pay that price. And that goes for anything.
Well, I like what you said about percentages too. And I
Yeah.
feel like you might be able to get a better bargain if you're like, hey, you know what? I 50% want to be outdoorsy and I'm willing to be 50% inside and then maybe like I don't know where I was going with that, but I
No,
mean
no, no. I
like
mean, the 50% is my life, is an active life, is outdoorsy. I'm out in the ocean. I'm out cave diving. I don't have really the office job. I don't sit in the air conditioning. I am stuck in the lightning storms and the heat, the bugs, and all of that. So
yeah,
my 50% is the outdoorsy side,
yeah,
right? It's the independent job. Is I don't know when my next meal comes from. I don't know when my next reservation comes from. I'm on 24/7.
yeah,
That's my 50% that I pick. People can look at that and say, lucky you, let's say the price that I pay. I live 6,000 miles from my family. I missed all of my
yeah,
father's birthday because it was in the middle of the summer, and the summer was used to be my high season. I only celebrated his 80th, and he died 9 months later. Is the price tags that people don't see is the healthcare or the cost of living, or the fact that if your phone charging cord breaks, is like, huh, where am I going to find the next one? You can try to drive around the island. And we're doing a little bit better here, but I remember times where, if my computer cord breaks, there's no Apple shop that sells my computer recharging cable or a hard drive. So now you have to order, and 2 weeks later, here comes your
yeah.
computer charging cable.
I
So there
I
is
never
a
really thought
price to
about
pay.
the fact that you're that isolated. I just that didn't even occur to me
We're
that
39 miles from the United States of America. We could just be in Tonga, is the same thing.
yeah. You need one of those little what do they call them, like cigarette boats? It's like what all the drug smugglers from
Yeah,
Colombia
yeah, yeah.
use. You get one of those,
Definitely not
you,
here.
you could get a phone charger and be back in like 5 seconds. Although the Coast Guard would probably be like stopping you all the time.
Not only that, it's $600 worth of fuel.
Yeah, never mind. That was a dumb idea. Oh, hey, can so I keep doing this. I keep asking to go back to something that we
That's
touched
fine.
touched on, but this is more about going to like when I said like sharks have personalities and maybe perhaps
Mhm.
you can recognize a shark by their personality. And I wanted to ask, is there maybe possibly like a group of sharks or even maybe just one shark in particular? And I don't want to put this in a way where I'm like they're your favorite shark because that's kind of a silly thing to ask, but like a shark that you feel like you have built a closer relationship with
Oh,
than other
absolutely. Yes.
sharks.
It's not a stupid question at all. Do I have a closer relationship with some individuals more than others? Absolutely. And that is based on their personality. It doesn't mean I love maybe the more distant one less. It's just the one that you see in my lap are specific individuals that have elected to come into my lap. There's a girl on the dive site called Hook because of how her dorsal fin is shaped. And I've known her for 14 years. She'll come in, she'll allow me to pet her as she swims by. In 14 years, she never once rested in my lap. And I tried. I
Wow.
tried to say, hey, Hook, would you like to relax? And she'll put the tail down in the sand, go with her nose. Yeah, no. Where there's others that will do that. And there's others that are learning. There's others that are like, don't you even touch me. So, no, absolutely. There are specific relationships. Some sharks are really fast.
Yeah.
Some sharks don't learn. Some sharks are more outgoing in a certain way. Like, so they'll come in, they'll show up on a dive. They're a new shark. Within dive number 3 of seeing me, they go, I know you, I'm coming in. Some sharks remain more reserved. Um, a lot of them remind me, and I don't want to compare them to dogs or cats, but sometimes it helps, right? So the one with the shark in the lap is like if you have cats, there's a cat that will jump in your lap and you can pet the cat, and there's a cat that you try to pet, and every time you grab the cat, it just kind of like slithers out of your hands and jumps back on the floor.
Well, that's exactly where my mind went. It's funny because I was like, don't say dogs, don't say dogs, and then you were like, I don't want to, but I
They're
was,
not dogs. They're more. If I have to compare with a personality, is a more independent personality like a cat. Very selective,
yeah,
very distinctive. Dogs have this, just like, where have you been? I missed you so much
yeah,
attitude. The sharks don't have. Is that very, very different. If I would say it, like more like a cat is like, I do what I do because I'm a shark. I do what I do with you because I care to want to do it, and
yeah,
there's nothing. And that's just why Shark Whisperer doesn't work. There's nothing you can whisper to me, Christina, unless
yeah,
I decide to
yeah.
engage with you.
That really leads me to something I did want to ask, and it was I I wasn't going to use dogs in particular. I was going to say perhaps any animal, but I was going to ask you like what it is you admire most um about how to put it, like,
Sharks?
well, just shark behavior specifically, and I would say, like, for instance, in contrast to other animals. So other, so
Honestly, the thing I love the most about sharks is that what you see is what you get, is their directness.
yeah,
In contrast to human beings, in contrast sometimes to people that you thought were friends, sharks are very direct.
yeah,
And there's no conniving, there's
yeah,
no trying to do a certain behaviors to obtain something from you. That's why they're not as cats either, because a cat will sloosh against your legs when they need to. Sharks are very direct. And for me, uh, as an Italian, I guess, as a very direct person, sometimes people tell me I can be a little bit abrupt, but I'm not abrupt. I am direct. If I like you, I like you, and you will know that. If I don't like you, you'll know that because I'll just completely stay away and avoid you. I will not try to smoosh you over. And so that's what I like about sharks. They're direct. They're
yeah,
very easy to read, and they match very much with my personality. They engage because they want to engage, not as an ulterior motive.
yeah. I guess,
And so in a word, they're very trustworthy animal.
yeah. I was gonna say like because, and once again, I want to preface this before I say, and to all the dog lovers in the world, when a dog becomes mean, a person made that dog mean, but a dog can become mean. It can become like psychologically that can happen to a dog. And from what I understand, that's not how sharks work. Like a shark's not going to develop a mean person. Is that, or am I wrong?
Correct. Yeah, they're
Could I
not
be
going to
wrong?
be mean. They're not going to develop that in face of something negative done to them. They do what I do, which is the back away. They
Yeah.
move away. They're just kind of like, all right, I'm done with you, and off they gone. So there's also no engagement, no meanness. And dogs. Let's remember that what we interpret as mean, it's fear.
It's fair. Yeah.
Usually dogs react with what we consider a mean or aggressive, which is, oh, that word is so loaded, but with an aggressive behavior is usually in defense. So I've been hurt before you come and hurt me again, because I'm absolutely terrified and just gonna manifest this very intense personality that is gonna tell you back off.
Yeah. Oh, and I
Because
would,
I'm very scared.
and I would extrapolate from that too, that a mean person, you're going to have
Yes.
a mean person that also is stemming from a place of fear, trauma. Like, you have like a very mean, aggressive person. That's because they understand the world in this sense of,
Or
I
they
mean, I'm not a
project
psychologist, but
experiences that
yeah,
have gone on to them.
yeah,
And so they project these experiences in future setups that might trigger the same memories and the same feelings and the same emotions of that experience that trigger that. And so react equally in the same way, although sometimes even their reaction is not justified by the situation. So there's people that react with extreme intense emotions to a very small, let's call it, trigger. And if you are part of that, if you witness that, you're just going, that was a very disproportionate reaction. And the reason why is they're projecting their body physically and mentally went into the same situation that triggered the first one. And
yeah.
now the smallest of ones just basically ignites that. It does not happen with sharks, if that's what you're asking. They don't.
Yeah, and I think maybe it was perhaps like I was a little off base by introducing dogs as an example. I think maybe that wasn't
No, no,
really
no. You were good. You were good. It's actually
okay.
very good. Like the conversation is just interesting. No matter how much, for example, humans may injure sharks,
Yeah,
they will not. We will not have the. Like the movie. What was the movie? Oh my goodness,
Jaws.
those movies and their movies. To be honest, between you and I'm not against the shark movies because they're work of fiction. People need to stop blaming the movies for their own,
Yeah,
incapability of using Google. But um, the shark there was the shark movie where the shark actually follow one of the protagonists of the original Jaws to the Bahamas
yes,
and have this vengeful rogue. They don't. That's a
yeah,
that's a funny part. They do not have the cognitive capability. They don't become rogue. They don't become vindictive.
yeah. If
It
you've
was
if
the
you've
other
wronged a
shark.
shark, they're not gonna remember you, and when they see you again, they go like, "That's the guy. That's the guy that put the hook in my mouth. I'm gonna go bite his leg off because I've
No. And I
yeah,
mean, they do remember us though. Remember, I mean, when I'm
yeah,
in the water with them, a lot of people say, how do sharks recognize you? Because I've had people standing, holding my hand, side by side in scuba gear wearing chino, which is one of the courses I offer. I offer people to come and do this with me. Shark yourself, I call it.
yeah,
And the sharks, and I say, reach out and try to pat them on the top of the head. And there's countless videos that Kevin, my husband, has taken of these people trying, they're so nervous trying to reach the sharks, and the shark is moving by inches and avoiding being touched by the person and coming straight into my chest instead.
that's awesome.
Okay. So they do recognize us. They do
Yeah,
recognize us through our hormonal secretions, through our scent. We forget that they have a very keen sense of scent. And
yeah,
so my scent is different than yours. And the sharks can detect that. But it's really funny. They'll be like, oh no, you're too nervous. And we can be holding hands, so shoulder to shoulder. And the sharks will avoid the new person and come to me. On the second dive, they'll start going a little bit closer to the not so new person. By the third dive, they go, okay, all right, you're relaxed and you're okay now. And by the fourth dive, and we have these progressive videos are truly amazing. I'm watching these animals going, oh, your energy is off. I'm going to avoid you.
yeah. I This makes me think so much again when you brought up the scent of another, like, and I'm sure that, like we said, some of these things are originally based in some sort of fact, but the drop of human blood uh myth, where if you're on a boat and you cut your hand on a rope or something, and a drop of human blood falls into the ocean, sharks from miles away can smell that drop of human blood and will seek it out. They'll come to the boat. I'm going to assume that's not true.
That's not true. I mean, there's just so much to this one scenario that you brought. Sharks are not attracted to human blood, period. That's the first statement, and it's true. As a woman, I receive usually the questions about women on, menstruating. It's like, oh, I'm on my period. Can I go in the water? I'm like, yes, you can. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So that is also, way more human blood than a cut on the finger. So they're not attracted to human blood. So usually people bring up the USS Indianapolis, the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, or some of the wreckages that's happened before. When we go into that, there is an association of events, right? A piling up of events. A ship sinks, it is being torpedoed.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to sound a little bit crude, but there are men that have been dismembered. There are
Yeah.
body parts. There's death. There's drowning. There is a full canteen. There's a latrine. There's all sorts of things that are happening at once. That obviously calls certain sharks that are out there when nature goes, hey, there's a mess, go and clean.
Yeah.
Same as if you drop a crumb of bread on the floor and all of a sudden it's like, where are these ants coming from? I never seen ants in my apartment. Next thing you know, the ants are carrying, the breadcrumb away. So
Yeah.
there is a natural reaction of sharks to massive amount of tragedies because that is considered you got to clean it up.
Yeah.
The cutting, the other part is in order for the shark to smell it, it has to hit the nose. So if you drip in the water, let's say you even cut your hand off, right? I
Yeah.
don't know, you cut your hand off and this blood falls into the water, but the shark is, and let's say the sharks were attracted to that scent, right? And the
Yeah.
shark is 6 miles away. So, well, it's not going to detect that. So the blood has to leave enough traces, right? Let's
Yeah.
say fish blood has to leave enough traces like Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs to hit the nose of the shark for the shark to follow this ascent. So it's not that you toss a fish in the water here and the shark that is 6 miles away can smell it.
Yeah.
It has to create a trail. So they're not attracted to human blood. Even if you have human blood in the water that, let's say people say, no, that's not true. It would still have to hit their nose. But furthermore, it has to have a return on investment.
Yeah.
So if you descale a fish, right, and there's few scales in the water, there's no sharks that's going to come. There's not enough return on investment for them to smell the scent and go, oh, that was something. What was that? Oh, it's gone. Right?
Yeah.
So now, when the sharks interact with human tragedies, is on that scale,
Yeah.
then yes, you will have that occasional interaction, and sharks also taking humans or parts of humans because of all the messages that have been sent out there.
Yeah. And like we had said earlier with the media, when you brought up the USS Indianapolis, the movie Jaws, I would say probably one of the most haunting and terrifying
Starting scene.
scene of the movie is the fisherman who explains when he was on that boat, and I don't remember the number of sailors, but he's like, 500 men went in the water that day, 100 come out, and but that's a true story, and that did happen, and you could read about it's a historical fact, but that's also, I mean, that's not a common occurrence, and like,
No, I read the book. So there's also the sailors that said, like the sharks are coming in 4 to 5 days after the sinking.
yeah,
As sailors were hanging on to pieces of driftwood, a lot of them drowned. A lot of them swam to their death. They were hallucinating because they didn't have fresh water. And they'll be on the plank and going, oh, they're distributing fresh water. And the guy that was still lucid will go, what are you talking about? Yeah, it says the canteen, they're distributing fresh water, and will dive down and drown.
yeah,
So as the people slowly became spent, yes, then the sharks came in and dispose, this is a very difficult subject to find the correct respectful words, but dispose of these dying or dead or extremely injured men.
yeah,
um, but it took some time. So like I said, they were doing the job, but like the occasional I'm bleeding and I'm still breathing and swimming and I'm fine. Even some of the shark bites, most of the shark bites on humans, the reason why there's a lot of people that make it out is because shark bites once and then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
absolutely the wrong thing. The deaths usually happens because the bite is so massive.
Yeah.
Right? And that is one of the other things I try to teach, just like it's not that the shark is the same, we have pit bulls, it's the same thing. It's not that the animal is aggressive because of their size or aggressive because of their bite. If you're on a bicycle and you clash with another bicyclist, you'll fall on the ground, scrape your elbow, get up, go, sorry, sorry, wipe your knees, get back on the bicycles, and off you go. If
Yeah.
you're a bicycle and you get hit by 18-wheeler, the consequences on the bicycle on the cyclist is much, much more dire. It doesn't make the 18-wheeler aggressive.
Yeah.
It just makes the 18-wheeler big and powerful. So a great white bite to me is not aggressive. It's a bite,
Yeah.
right? And it's really funny how we say, well, they're aggressive because that's how they eat. I was like, well, are you aggressive when you fork and cut your meal? Or you just eat in the
Or
way you eat?
when you also brought up earlier when about mosquitoes being the deadliest animal on the planet, uh
They're not aggressive. They're
they're
doing the
not
mosquito thing.
the mosquito is not trying to kill you when they bite you. They're just very small, so you're likely to be okay.
Yeah. And
um
then you could contest that actually the shark when it bites someone or something, they're trying to find out if it's a reasonable meal.
yeah.
So certain way they are trying to kill you, but they're not biting you with the ill intent of biting you.
Yeah.
And that's one. And most of the bites of sharks is the sharks will go, oh, I bit the wrong thing. Which brings us back to personalities and individuality of sharks, that we don't give them this credit. Is we forget that maybe there is a shark that is sick,
Yeah.
or maybe a shark that has been injured by human action.
Yeah.
We had a shark on our site. She lasted about 9 months. Her name was Fairy, because she'd been cut by propellers. I mean, sliced open by propellers, lost the upper caudal of her tail. And, her name was Fairy because obviously it was not a fairy tale because she missed her tail. But a shark like that becomes way more intense because her capability of procuring food is limited.
Yeah.
So we don't realize that maybe sometimes these sharks might have situation that we have created for them to become quote unquote desperate. I'm not saying that the sharks bite people are desperate, but we need to put all of that into the pot. But ultimately, what we need to put into the pot, it is in the United States alone, there's 11 million people average that hit the ocean swimming, scuba diving, surfing every day.
Yeah.
And when we have one shark bite in Australia, it comes all the way
Yeah.
to Alaska. And yet we fail to talk about, like I said, the day in Nashville, Tennessee, how much domestic violence went on.
Yeah. Um Also, I can't think of her name, but you'll know who I'm talking about immediately as soon as I say the surfer who she lost her arm surfing, and uh went right back to being a pro surfer again. I don't know if you recall
And
that.
a huge, I know Mike Coots, he lost his leg to a
Yeah, and
shark.
well,
Um,
it's just
and
show
when,
it goes
and
to
became,
those people that really they understand. Like, I guess they spend so much time in the water, they understand like that shark bite was it was not a malicious intent, and they're
no,
not
and,
going to
and
give up on their passion, their dream.
correct, and that they're very much in tune with understanding that, and I mean they're the biggest shark advocates, the ones that actually sometimes have been injured by sharks, are already and become even more spoke people for the sharks and saying this was an accident.
Yeah.
Um, it,
I
it
actually, oh, sorry. Go ahead. You go
No,
ahead.
no, no. It's just, I mean, I have 7 stitches on my calf from a dog that came out of a yard. The owner left the yard,
Yeah.
the gate open. The dog comes out. I was running. It was early in the morning. It was really dark, and I heard this like bite, and I stopped, and the dog bit me, and then ran away. And next thing I am adopting dogs. My
Yeah.
husband and I get out of the car and go and pick up pit bulls in our arms and take them to the shelter. Uh, the dog bit me in that moment, in that instance. Does not deter and does not make me afraid of every single dog I meet on the road.
Yeah.
Um, A lot of people tell me, "Oh, I'm afraid of your dog because, I got bitten by a dog," or "I'm afraid of your dog." A lot of people here in the Bahamas are afraid of dogs just because they're afraid of dogs. And sometimes in the right instances, I tell them, I've been attacked once by a guy. I was on my morning walk. I was no more than 200 yards from my apartment, and this guy walking towards me to go. I thought he was coming into work into Paralukaya. Weirdly crossed the road, kind of like give me a little bit of the way he crossed the road. Next
Yeah.
thing you know, sprinted towards me, trying to first push me, then pull me into the bush. I pushed away the attack and I survived it, no problem.
Yeah.
Should that make me automatically afraid of every single man that now in the morning crosses my path as I'm walking and running? The individual man. And it's like, to me, it's like, no, that was an instance. I was lucky. I was strong, strong enough to.
I was gonna take it back to swimming in the chainmail. You had been prepping for that moment. That dude probably did not expect to get thrown down so hard.
He wasn't able to throw me down because I actually acutely noticed how he was crossing the road, and it bothered me how he crossed the road. When people
Yeah.
J cross the road, if I'm walking, they J cross. He kind of like did the 90 degrees,
Yeah.
1990, and he was coming towards me. So my instinct went up. By the time I thought, if he does the 90 degrees cross again, I am going to walk outside of him, he sprinted for me. But the corner of my eye had already noticed that he didn't J cross the road like a normal person should J cross the road, which is
Yeah.
trying to, be lazy.
Yeah.
And it was a early morning, December 13th, 2012. It was an early morning. There was no crossway. It was not the kind of guy that goes, "Oh, I'm in Canada, I'm going to use the pedestrians." No, no, no. He was just J crossing, but he cross targeting me. So I actually prevented his first push by bracing my legs and pushing him up into his chest. When he then grabbed my wrist, I have some background training in self defense. I basically pull my wrist out and then I shoved him away. And that was the extent. He wasn't even able to push me down. I never hit the ground.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that does not prevent me from now, and maybe it's because I survived it, right? It didn't go through. If it went through, maybe it will be a little bit different. But I'm talking about the average person says, "Oh, I'm afraid of sharks because I've heard." It's the same
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
That did not prevent me from being uh, comfortable having single guys walking towards me early in the morning. 2 days later, I was back on the road running.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably a little bit gnarlier than most people too, though. So we could also like add that to the equation.
No,
um,
I'm not. I'm 5'5".
I know.
I'm
I'm
a
just saying.
5'5",
I'm just
125 pounds woman.
525 pounds of gnarly. Not afraid to stick your entire arm in a shark's mouth. But hey, I do have to ask you this next question. This is because we've been talking about dispelling the myths and so on and so forth. But 100% I have to ask you about your organization, People of the Water, and how you work to protect these vital members of the ocean ecosystem. And if you could just maybe just tell me, like, what is People of the Water, and what do you guys do?
People of the Water is a non-profit that we founded in 2019 as honestly a representation of what I had already been doing since 1996 about, right? So I've been in ocean, shark and cave conservation land, because protecting sharks means protecting their food, protecting their nesting grounds. And here in the Bahamas is related to caves and mangroves. So I've been in all of that since 1996. And the way I did it is I worked, I made the money, and then I used it to do things on the side for free. So People of the Water was kind of like born to represent what I had already been doing and hopefully receive more meaningful funds to help us expand this and do it more. Like training Bahamians. I've trained Bahamians for almost 20 years in the art of scuba diving, of water, advanced rescue, dive masters, instructors, as part of their school system are bringing so that they can also obtain better possibilities, better jobs, better outcomes. The other day we were heading out on the boat and the police boat came speeding towards us and I knew immediately. And it was one of my old, quote unquote kids. I mean, he's in his mid 36, right? But I still call him a kid.
Yeah.
And he came over. He's been in the defense force as a diver since I certified him as an instructor. And he came over and says, "Hey, you see this boat? Guess who's in charge of it?" Right? So he knew I was on the boat and he rushed with a police boat to tell me his next accomplishment. And
Yeah.
it just, so that's what People of the Water tries to help us do, is fund more of the exploration part to fuel more of the education. And ultimately, our goal is to expand conservation. Right now, we have the sharks protected in the Bahamas, a couple of marine protected areas. We're about to embark on another project. So the donations go and help us funding some of the work we do, and then some of the students we host.
I meant to say that at the very top of this interview, and but I'll say it now because I just forgot to. You've you reef sharks in the Bahamas are now
No reef
complete.
sharks. I
What?
spearheaded a campaign that got all sharks
Oh, okay. So
protected
yeah,
in the Bahamas.
all sharks are now protected in they're a protected species. Are
All of them.
all
It's
of
one of
them?
the most comprehensive legislations I ever seen a government issues. The Bahamian
Yeah,
government really did well on this. I mean, absolutely, my hats to them. First of all, they already banned long lining and drift nets back in 1986, thanks to the work of Dr. Samuel Gruber, the
yeah,
founder of Bimini Shark Lab. So Dr. Samuel Gruber was like, no long lining, no drift net, 1986. So we already had a healthy populations. And then in 2009, I spearheaded a campaign that started locally in saying we need to protect the sharks. And the Bahamian government said, absolutely. There's even a law that if you accidentally kill a shark, you have to let it go. You cannot accidentally, you cannot land a shark that you accidentally kill. And what it
oh,
does is prevents people from going, oopsie, today I accidentally killed 10 sharks.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So the accidental kill needs to be released. You need to let it go in the ocean. You cannot have it on the boat. You cannot take pictures with it, nothing. The moment the shark is dead, it's got to go.
yeah,
And so Brunson, which is one of these guys, is like an enforcer of these things. Why? Because he was also someone that I trained in
yeah,
working with sharks, and he was an instructor, and he fell in love with sharks as a Bahamian, and now he controls the port. So he controls smuggling of shark products. He controls the accidental kills of sharks.
yeah.
So
That's
that's what People of the Waters allow me to do.
an enormous
It's allow me to
accomplishment.
multiply who I am
Yeah, yeah.
and give it back to this country that I call home and
Because you can't just
this
have
place I love so much.
one Cristina Zenato. You need an army of
Yes.
Cristina Zenatos to
And
get
each
out
one of
here
us has a
and protect the
different role.
sharks. Yeah,
And
of
each
course.
one of
Yeah,
us has a different role. I need the Brunsons. And then Brunson had his nephew, which I saw the other day, Steve, whom I trained up to dive master as well, entering the defense forces. So I saw him the other day. And, I'm so, they make me like almost like hand proud, like I feel like a little hand proud, and I see them, and he's standing in his full, blown uniform, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's, "Oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm diving, and I keep diving," and I sit there, it's just kind of like, yes, all the nightmares you made me go through are worth it. Well, because I used to train, I trained them in their teen times, 17, 18, 19. So there's a
yeah,
clash of like gender, culture, skin, you name it, there's a clash. But then 5 years later, they come back and I go, wow, I didn't see what you did for me then,
yeah,
but I see it now and I want to thank you. And here they are, spread everywhere, doing all sorts of like positive things for the Bahamas, for the sharks, for the environment, for themselves.
yeah,
So that's what People of the Water allows me to do, is to multiply, Christine.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Um,
In a
Christina,
way.
I have one last question for you.
Sure.
Well, it's a multi part question, but it is where can people find you, follow you, check out your work, your videos, all that stuff? And additionally, for anyone out there who might be feeling a little bit brave how might somebody even go to the Bahamas and jump in the water and be face to face with a shark if someone was so inclined to even try
We
that?
have many people that come to do that. We have two. Okay, so my entire social media, um, I am on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and it's CristinaZenato.com. So it's without an H, Christina, and then Zenato, not a D at the end, is a T.
Yeah.
And the website is www.CristinaZenato.com. The website for the nonprofit is pownonprofit.org.
I'll put a
Uh,
link. I'll put a link to that in the
yes.
description, so it's easier just
So
to click
the
on.
two things that people can do with us with the sharks is very much coming. They have to be certified scuba divers, and they come and stand and they do the shark interactive experience or shark interactive course, and they stand with us in the middle of the sharks, interact with the sharks, learn about shark behavior, learn about recognizing the individuals, and then we talk about obviously all sorts of other things shark related. And then we run trips around the northern Bahamas to scuba dive, not directly interact, but observe from a distance. Tigers, bulls, great hammerheads, lemons, Caribbean, Atlantic sharp nose, baby lemons, all sorts of rays. And we do this liveaboard of like 10 nights, 9 day. People get certified to come on a boat with us. They came in with 4 certification dives under their belt and took them diving with these like 20-foot sharks. And so very much a lot of that. And during these trips, I always do educational presentations and all of that.
Yeah,
But if you go on CristinaZenato.com, you'll find all of it. If you
that sounds
follow
like
me
a
on social media, I'm
sounds like a
always
wild
posting
ride.
a lot of educational stuff.
That sounds like a wild
It's awesome.
10 days. It sounds
It's
so cool.
absolutely
Oh my
awesome. The
god! And I'm
transformative,
yeah,
the transformation that I've seen in people in coming in contact direct. Some absolutely terrified of sharks came to get rid of being terrified. Some absolutely in love with sharks. Some people, after being with sharks and with me and talking through things, they actually took major life decisions because that moment with the sharks really made them realize there's something
yeah,
and made
yeah.
them steer their life in the direction that they felt a gut feeling for, but they were so afraid of. And the moment they had that shark experience, I go, you know what? I'm going to go for that.
You know, I'm gonna say something like so obviously I care about sharks. I mean, that's why I reached out to you. That's why we're talking, have this conversation. But I will not lie or pretend like uh that I'm not afraid of sharks because I am. I am a not like not it's not like
It's okay.
crazy, but but I'm afraid of sharks. Like, as are tons of people. And this honestly, this sounds like such a great way to just be like to just get the exposure because
Yes.
I've only
Being
ever
afraid of sharks is such a generalized statement. So the
yeah
thing is, when people say, I'm afraid of sharks, or I'm afraid of this, or what should I do if I see a shark in the water? It goes back to me. I have 10 questions.
yeah
Where are you? Are you on a paddleboard? Are you spear fishing? Are you swimming? Are you snorkeling? Are you scuba diving? Where are you in the
yeah
world? Right? Are you in South Africa? Are you in the Bahamas? And where are you in the world? What part of South Africa? What part of the Bahamas? What part, because the Bahamas here, we have different species in different parts of this island alone. Right.
yeah
So if you come and do the Caribbean reef sharks, there's no tigers there.
yeah
But you go 40 miles west and we have Tiger Beach with 20-foot tiger sharks. So where are you? What are you doing? What kind of species of sharks? Definitely, those are questions that you should ask yourself when you say, well, I'm afraid of sharks, right? If you're in the Mediterranean, you say, I'm afraid of sharks. It's like, what are the likelihood of seeing a shark? We fish them all out. On top of that is sometimes there are instances in which you should say, well, I'm not going to go in the water, not because of, sharks being this mindless machine, be the same way I will not speed over a warning, ice on the road warning,
yeah
right? So there are days, even here in the Bahamas, where I may go down to the beach and the ocean is very rough, and one of my dogs loves swimming, and you'll be like, I'm going. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going dog paddling in milky colored water in 2 to 3 waves breaking on the ocean
yeah
because of the visibility, because you're a dog, because of the way you swim,
yeah
right? So I think the best part to get rid of fear is if you are somewhere that you know there's sharks, talk to some local people, local entities, right? Go to the beach and say, but about sharks? Oh no, well, we swim here all the time. And regulate yourself based on that. There's a place in Australia, I remember they had 5 surfers getting bitten, and everybody's saying, oh yeah, they keep telling people not to go on that corner of the beach. But everybody keeps going in that corner of the beach because those are the best waves. And you're just kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like they're telling you, do not go in the specific corner of the beach.
Yeah.
Go in the other 10 miles available. Oh, but those are the best waves. And at a
Yeah, but
certain
those are
point,
the
you
best
also need to be
waves. Uh,
you need to be responsible also for your own actions. So there's few and far between instances.
Go back to what you said about price tags.
Yeah, in
What are
which
you
I
willing to
went
pay
to
for
the
that
beach
wave?
and I was like, not today.
Yeah.
I came back, yes, the night I was there swimming the day before, and I'm gonna go the next day. But there's that moment, same as I will not stand on the beach during a lightning storm without my chainmail suit.
Yeah. That makes sense. Christina, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was so awesome to talk to you, and you've really put the seed in my mind of I need to go out and I've got to see these sharks for myself at some
Yeah,
point and change the way I totally feel about it. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day in the Bahamas. And yeah, just thanks.
thank you for having me.